Welcome back to another episode of Unscripted Exchanges from the greatest city of them all, Cincinnati, Ohio. Cole, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic.
I know you
I know
are.
you wanted me to say something else. Like maybe I should come in like I'm doing all right. All right. No, I'm doing great, Hayden. How are you doing today?
I am living the dream, my friend. That's the only way to operate around here. First off, I do want to wish you again a happy birthday here on the air for those that are listening. I might have forgotten that it was Cole's birthday. Maybe not. He just kind of had to dangle the carrot a little bit this morning when we were chatting offline, but I did not totally forget. It was just more so, hey, you know what today is? And as soon as he said something like that, I'm like, it clicked.
I had to stoke the fire just a little bit.
Exactly. And every now and then that's all right. It's not like I completely forgot.
I called Amanda right after that. I was like, "You never believe that Hayden forgot my birthday."
Hey, it's happened before. I don't take it personally. I mean, I could see how you might get a little bent out of shape or bummed, but there's a lot going on in everyone's lives. But happy birthday, Cole. You're a year older, year wiser.
26 now.
26. Yeah. Wow, you turned the clock backwards. You got to tell me how to do that.
Yeah, it's a trick. No, I'm almost 30, 29, 29 years young, I like to say. I feel like I've been repeating this every year, Hayden. Somebody will say, "Hey, how's it feel?" Like, so Ben's been on cloud 9 recently. He goes, "Dude, how's it feel turning 29?" I said, "I'm just getting into my prime." And I started laughing to myself. So I went back every the past 3 years, whenever because most people don't say how does it feel to be so and so, but we always say that to each other, and every single time he says that, I say, "Dude, I'm just getting into my prime." But I've been saying that since I was like 23 or 24.
Heck yeah.
And I was going back through the years because iPhones will store like your conversations forever, and I'm like, that's pretty positive. That makes me feel good. Like I every single time my initial response is like, "Dude, I'm just getting started."
You're getting better every year, man.
Yeah.
Do you have any, and then we can dive on into some of our main topics here. Do you have any personal goals for year 29? Do you operate that way, or is it kind of just keep on doing what you've been doing?
I would say it's mostly like keep on doing what I've been doing. Keep the habits, the good habits that I've developed. Keep shedding the habits I would say are not super great for me. I think I'm getting there. But I would say overall, I just look at it as like, hey, am I improving in the areas I want to improve in every single year? And I don't measure that. Some people are big on like, hey, let's measure. And in certain areas of business and life, you need to measure that. But I don't hold myself to certain measurements. Because I think that's just going to be, for me, that's a recipe for, looking at myself as, looking at things as failures. I just say, hey, did I get better? Did I grow financially? Did I grow emotionally? Did I, become a better parent in certain areas? Did I support my wife better? Yeah. I mean, yeah, overall, sure. Yeah, I did. There's statistics and areas I can point that I did that. So for me, that's all I'm looking for.
That's a wonderful way to operate, my friend. Well, hey, happy birthday. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the greatest year around the sun for you.
Amen, brother. Amen.
So I know we've been talking a lot about this, and I think we might have been talking about this even a couple of episodes back very briefly, but it's been kind of the big thing in the tech world for many months now. So is it CHATGPT?
Dude,
I'm already...
I think they're on version 97 or something.
Yeah, but what's it called? ChatGPT.
GPT.
Look at that. People are going to be like, what the hell is that guy even talking about out there? It's a wordful or a mouthful for me. It's early in the morning here, Friday Eastern time. But I think that's extremely powerful for really anyone. It's just understanding how to leverage that completely. It's like knowing that, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, those can all be very detrimental tools if you don't know how to use them. But at the same time, if you know how to properly use them, you can create something very powerful, especially talking from a business lens. Mm-hmm. And I think this is kind of where you and I want to go here today is how could one potentially use that and optimize their ways of working, grow their brand, grow whatever they're doing. Because I know you and I have talked about this from day one. You and I work very hard, but it's not always how hard we work, it's how smart we work. So let's utilize some of the technology and tools that are out there. But enough of me kind of rambling. I just want to get your initial thoughts and, how would you like to use that? I know you've dabbled around with it a little bit. maybe you could use an example here with our podcast and kind of where we potentially want to go, and then some things that we're still trying to learn.
Well, I would say first off, it's AI, and AI obviously has been like, it feels like AI to me every single year comes like something new comes out, and it's like you stop hearing about AI for just a little bit, right? So it's like the center of like the headlines of like TechCrunch and Forbes and Fortune and Entrepreneur and see everything's AI. Then all of a sudden you go through like a few months and it kind of like, okay, you don't see as much stuff about AI, right? Because like AI is a buzzword. Let's be real. AI, that's a buzzword. So you stop hearing about it. Well, like it's been around for decades. Artificial intelligence has been around for decades. But what's interesting, awesome, and scary about this ChatGPT 4 and just ChatGPT and the AI learning models and speech models that are coming out now is the ability to not only like remember conversations, but able to pull context out of things that you're saying and literally do work for you. So where it's at now, and I've dabbled with it just a little bit. I'm starting to get a little bit more heavy into it as it's obviously we're seeing all these different versions and things come out in different apps. But what's really interesting about where it's at right now is, as you pointed out, to me, I don't really care to like get on and talk to a robot about my personal life. Like
Yeah.
I've got friends and family and stuff. But what I started dabbling in it with is I was like when it first kind of hit the big screen, right? I think 2.5, 3 months ago, when they first came out with like Open AI, right?
To the public, that is.
To the
Yeah.
public. And,
Yeah.
I started dabbling with it and saying like, hey, what can this do? And what's interesting is the business aspect, like I said, Hayden. So I'll give a couple examples. Recently, I started dabbling in like some marketing stuff, started asking some marketing questions. So I said, I got on a conversation. Maybe I'll share the conversation. I said, hey, what kind of marketing title should I give on LinkedIn to get the most growth? And then I put like 3 fields. Like, one, I want to be engaging. 2, I want it to be about business. 3, I want it to be, inclusive, right? So I want everybody to be able to relate to it. And I was just trying to give it like see what it could do, and it spit out like 50 titles. And not only did it give me titles, but it pulled like statistics about how those types of titles with the language in the titles and the content will engage an audience based off this, this, and this. And they even pulled examples of previous titles that have worked well, like LinkedIn articles or LinkedIn posts that have shot through the roof, like garnered. And I was like, okay, this is interesting, right? I can use this.
Words matter, right?
Yeah. Well, it was like the ability to say, hey, and here's the flip side of it, right? Is that if you're starting to do this, people are going to question, well, is it going to replace us? Is it going to, eliminate creativity? Because it can, you can read so far into that. That's a bunch of, I don't read.
I'm going to chime in with that
Yeah.
and try to answer that question personally from my perspective, because you're right. Everyone goes to doom and gloom, or a lot of people do, like, hey, these robots are going to replace us. Like, what are we going to do? The answer is no, they're not going to replace us. They're going to replace certain aspects of our lives, but that allows us to then open up our mindsets for growth and different things that we can explore as human beings. Like, we might not have a certain, job that is around anymore, but that means that humans have to evolve and look at other things that they can do that are beneficial to society. Or maybe it does truly just open up more free time in a human being's like work schedule or personal life where, okay, I do have a robot that is able to take on some of the aspects of my job. And it's kind of like having an associate for you. And that allows you to be more present with your family, your kids, do all sorts of things. The list could go on and on. So I'm very adamant when someone says, oh, they're going to take over and replace us. Could they? In theory, I think there's a lot of smart people out there that have a very compelling story. Sure. But I don't see that happening until we're long and gone. So I'm not too worried about it, selfishly speaking.
Well, you have to remember too that all of these language models and everything are still coming from people, whether they're all driven by people. These were built by human beings. So like, you got to take that in perspective. And I think too, to your point, I mentioned that because that's a lot of what like what you hear. But in reality, as we've got these tools now that are advancing so quickly that can help you start your own online e-commerce business, that can help you get more traction for your local mom and pop flower store, that you don't know how to use social media. It can help you do that in a way that maybe eliminates the effort and the money that it takes to go hire somebody to do that. Which again, some people, well, they're eliminating jobs. Maybe, but at the same time, there is huge benefit to being able to take advantage of a tool like this to exponentially grow your business, to exponentially educate yourself. And so, I mean, I think the things are endless. Like Ben, I was talking to Circo last night. He was on cloud nine again. He's always on cloud nine. But we were talking about it, and he's been dabbling in it, and we're gonna have him on the show because he's planning to start his own, thing.
Hopefully, we didn't spill the beans there. Sorry, Ben, if we did.
No, he's just planning to start something, something for fun.
Yeah.
Some cool projects.
Yeah.
And he's been dabbling in ChatGPT and some of those, and he was thinking about going on a trip. And he said, hey, I'm going to see if it can, plan an itinerary for me. So he gave it, a list of what he kind of wanted to do. This was over in Europe, yada, 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 yada. And it planned, a 7-day, trip for him, but it had, where to eat, where to go, what times to stop there. This whole thing, and it was like using a travel agent, but you didn't have to go through all that hassle, and you had everything planned out. I mean, I'm talking detail. And then stuff like that, right? Think about if you want to go on vacation, and I'm giving an example, and you've got $5,000. So we'll get into finance. Okay, I've saved $5,000, and that's my budget to go on a vacation with my 3 kids and my wife. But we really want to go, to Australia. Or we want to... Well, imagine if you could just go and say, hey, find me a trip in Australia that's 5 days long, includes airfare, that doesn't go over my $5,000 budget. Odds are that the program, especially what I was looking at last night, will come up with a set plan to do that. And even if it says, oh, well, it's actually going to be $6,000, here's how you could save your money to get there. Or here's how you could manipulate the airlines to get you a discounted price. That's the kind of stuff I see it going, travel hacking, personal finance. Hey, I'm struggling with saving for retirement. Here's where I'm at right now. Help me figure out a plan. Well, if you shop here, here, and here, maybe you could eliminate 20% of this or this or that. So I'm thinking those are the types of areas you can use a tool like this to help you get ahead and to simplify some areas in your life that you might be going, oh, I don't have time to read every finance book. I don't have time to go call and get on LinkedIn and try to find somebody that, and this is not a knock on LinkedIn or anything, but everybody can promote themselves how they want to promote themselves online. Doesn't mean they actually know or are the expert or have what you need, right? So maybe that's a tool that you don't have to go through a middleman, and maybe it's a resource that's easier to access that can help benefit your life in so many different ways, like travel hacking, like personal finance. Hey, I want to start a business. How do I go about raising capital? I mean, these are things. I'm not saying they replace people, but it's a step closer to get access to that information, maybe more quickly and more summarized. It's pretty awesome.
I mean, again, going back to some of our opening remarks with this, I do think that technology and ChatGPT will replace some jobs, but if you look back, that happens time and time again. And the people that have a growth mindset or a relentless mindset, however you want to choose to categorize those types of people, they'll find plenty of other jobs or alternatives. You just have to be willing to explore, okay, this might not be something that requires humans to do anymore. There used to be people that would type for other people. And now you can literally speak and it will, dictate what you're spitting out. That's one of millions of different examples. The technology is supposed to be there, at least in my mind, to help, as you were using the word simplify, and make our lives easier. Now, there is a fine line between maybe relying too much on technology, but also, in a business sense, you can consolidate how many people you have doing certain things. Now with AI, you can kind of replace that and save on cost. So I get it from a business standpoint, but at the same time, the people that are well, these people no longer have jobs. Well, they might not temporarily, but that means that they could explore other avenues in their lives. Again, it depends on what kind of mindset you have. You could be negative and then, bury your head in the sand, which is going to make things worse, not better. Doesn't help the situation. Or you can be like, you know what? This is unfortunate. These are the cards. This is the reality that I'm in. Let's go figure out what my options are.
Well, Hayden, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, go back like 50 years, right? Or 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where were we technologically? Where were we as a society, right? 100 years ago, we were just ending World War One, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were just kind of getting out of World War One. We were starting to hit the golden ages, right? The booming 20s, and things were progressing. Right? It was right before the Great Depression. But think about where things were at then. And I guarantee you those same discussions when Henry Ford started putting the assembly line together, started building cars in mass production, they started figuring out how to produce things more quickly and automate things. Think about it, everybody was like, well, we don't like this, right? This is going to eliminate jobs. This is going to change the way we can't replace humans. Everybody was having that exact same. Go back 100 years before that. Same discussions, I guarantee you, were happening and guess what? Like, life went on. Yes, people will lose their jobs. Things will change. That's just part of that's part of the world we live in. You can't avoid that. But as those things happen, new avenues for jobs, skills, specialties, opportunities, entrepreneurship, I mean, you name it, new things open up. Because as we add this, okay, great, now we're in this new phase of development and technological advances. Okay, so what things need to be filled there? Right? Society is going to progress. The younger generation is going to get better at that stuff. If we're introducing the people that are starting to learn about this now in their mid-teens, early 20s, are now going to become the people that fill those gaps at 25, 30, 35, 40, right? So it's going to shift, and we've just got to be okay with that and understand that, like, we also can't change, we can't stop progressing as a society because we're scared. We have to be careful. We have to be planning, but we can't. It's just like we can't say, in the next. I'm predicting the next 15 to 20 years, we won't have gas cars. They will not be manufactured. In 20 years from now, you will not be able to go buy a new car that's run on gas. There might be some machinery that's run on diesel and stuff like that, but I think it's just the way of the future. I think that's going to happen. So people will say, well, what happens to what happens to mechanics that only know how to do this? Well, in 20 years. A lot of those mechanics might be retired or ending or closing down bits. And guess what? The people that were in their 20s that were just starting to learn, if they're staying ahead of the curve now, they're going to start learning and following those trends. And so guess what? The new shops will work on electric vehicles. That's what will happen. Bob's mechanic shop will be Bob's electric vehicle mechanical shop. So I think it's a scare tactic that we all get so worried about. And you pointed out, I mean, history has shown us that technological advancement, as a society, as human beings, we will evolve with that.
Absolutely, Cole. And again, I think one of the things that we're both hitting on is the fact that change is inevitable, and people that do have the mindset of, I'm going to still be willing to learn different aspects of my job or what might be to come. And good companies will also help those employees that might be having some type of impact approaching them with exploring, how can they build out their skill sets and knowledge. Like, that is fundamentally like a great skill set to have. And that's what you and I are highlighting here. To your point, using the cars example, yeah, those mechanics might not be used to how to operate on a car that's built solely on technology, but if they're willing to explore, hey, that there's still like things that you can learn to support those new electric cars, like, they're not going to be without a job. They'll just have to step into a new way of doing it. I think all jobs at the end of the day are supposed to be put out of business. Like, and that's a consulting type of mindset where you're there to help fulfill an initial need or however long that need is. And then the need goes away and then you pivot and you move on. I mean, that is business 101.
Right.
Things do not stay the same year in and year out. And if they do, it's probably not that good of a business in my mind.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I know we've been going back and forth on ChatGPT, but I do kind of want to pivot here because I know you got to jump to some other things. You're getting the horse, right?
Oh yes.
That's awesome,
Yep,
man.
made the jump, man.
Heck yeah. We can talk more about that in an upcoming podcast too. But I do want to kind of just get your thoughts, and I'll open with some of my thoughts too. But recently in the news, Amazon once again is making headlines, and this is for removing some of the free returns. I think they're updating their policy. I've got an article pulled up here. Again, it doesn't have all of the specific details, but again, for you and I, just to kind of share some of our initial thoughts, it does sound like customers will be charged a fee, not always, for some of their returns. And I think that was Amazon's bread and butter, or a very strong value prop, making it a frictionless or easy experience when, Cole, you order product XYZ and you're like, you know what, I don't need this, or I don't like it, whatever the reason was, you can go turn around as quickly as you ordered it and send it back for free. Now it sounds like Amazon is realizing that that is not that financially viable because so many customers are accessing the return functionality, and they do need to start potentially charging customers. Again, I don't know how frequently or what situations are meeting that criteria where, Cole or myself, just using us as examples, would have to pay now for a return versus not having to. It still sounds like they do have their access points that will be around for, I think, at least the foreseeable future, such as Kohl's, Whole Foods. Like, you can stop in and drop off packages there. And I think that's still going to be free. But again, this is more so focused on the whole UPS side of the house. And maybe that's just a partnership that's, no longer going to be a partnership. Again, don't know quite all the details, but I'm more so looking at the fact that it will impact some customers that thought that, hey, it's so easy to return a package just like it is so easy to buy, and I don't have to worry about paying anything extra. But now you have to consider, I might have to pay to return this. So I wonder how many people are either still going to buy a product and return it, or if they're going to end up buying the product and just keeping it for whatever reason, which I think that opens up the door to potential business opportunities for just everyday customers with I wouldn't call it a wholesale business, but you would be flipping stuff. And you can just resell. Like, you see more and more of these places on like Facebook Marketplace. There's tons of other apps where people are selling stuff. There's these open box retailers too, which that typically does have to do with bulk returns to like an Amazon, for example, where they're like, you know what, a lot of these products end up getting thrown away, and they're selling these back for pennies on the dollar to whomever, like by the pallets, and these companies then are turning around selling them to other consumers for a fraction of the price, but they probably got dings and dents, whatever it might be, sometimes not so much. But again, that's another business opportunity or a benefit, looking at, okay, people can continue to still return all these, and if Amazon's not wanting to process all these returns, there's still the option to have these middlemen come in, buy all these products, and still flip them for a price. I mean, there's a few different ways that you can take this. What are your thoughts, man? I know that there's a lot to unpack there, but I think it's going to piss off a lot of people, especially if they don't read all the details. Again, it sounds like this isn't going to be Amazon is charging everyone now for returns. It's just there's certain situations where you will have to pay, and I think it's primarily to start with UPS.
So I think there's a couple. I have a few thoughts about it.
Yeah.
First off, it kind of just makes sense to me from a business standpoint for both UPS and Amazon, right? Because Amazon, if they were giving free UPS shipments back to them, they've probably got some kind of bulk deal with UPS, some exclusive deal that they're paying pennies on the dollar for those shipments because they're doing so many of them, right?
Yep.
It's just like some, the more you order, the lower your prices, right? Yep. That kind of thing. Amazon's huge.
Yep.
So it kind of makes sense from like a perspective of like UPS probably was like, okay, and you have to see the numbers. Like, what are the numbers behind this? But from a perspective of business, it makes a lot of sense to me. On the side that like, hey, they've been probably hemorrhaging a lot of money because they made it so people could buy something like, hey, oh, that looks interesting. We've done it, right? Hey, I want to try this out. Sure, let's see if I like it. I get it in. I'm like, I don't need it. I'll just go back and drop it back off at UPS. Like that's, dude, we've done that a ton because it's what's the harm? No harm, no foul, right?
It's so convenient, which is what Amazon has built their whole business model around. Yeah.
But the problem is like, am I going to be what I think will be interesting, and we'll see how it fleshes out. It probably won't impact them as much as I'm kind of talking about here, but I'm thinking like, am I going to be more likely to not buy something because I know that if I buy it, I have to pay shipping, and if it's a certain size. Now, granted, how much is it going to be to ship something back? The question would be, is Amazon going to charge a flat fee? Like, hey, you go to UPS, it's no matter the size package, it's $5 now. Okay, it's $5, but if it's, hey, you go back to UPS and you pay whatever shipping it is to our local facility, well, that might make me question because shipping's not cheap. You go and send a big package back that's like a 5x5 or whatever, you could be $20-$30. So maybe you spent $50 on the product. So I think it's going to make people start to think, and I want to see more details on how they flesh it out. So time will tell if it's a good plan for Amazon. Probably is, but just a matter of how they actually negotiate and give that pricing to their clients. Because I don't know. I mean, for me personally,
it's good for, I'm jumping back in. It's good for Amazon from a business standpoint, as you've been highlighting, but from a customer lens, it's probably going to piss off some customers.
Well, it might make me not. It might make me not want to try this product out because I wasn't sure about it.
Right.
Versus before, I just buy it. I don't. It doesn't look like the packet. It looks different than what I thought I saw online. I'll just go drop it off at UPS. That's 5 minutes away from my house. Well, now I'm like, oh, I have to pay for it. That means I'm gonna have to pay double. Right? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some smart analysts out there working for Amazon
that's figured this out,
that have looked at I think the word would be like attrition rates for, people as you were describing. Okay, instead of me in the past buying this because there's no risk of, I can go return it, I don't have to pay an extra fee, versus, now I got to think about, how much is this going to cost to return? Maybe I'm not willing to pay for it. And they probably have broken down, okay, how many people are going to still, not do that versus do it. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
Here's another question, too. I'm just curious about, like, when they get, and this is probably another angle they're looking at, is when they get a return, and this is probably going to sound super boring, so I'll get this quickly. But, like, my head goes to, okay, they get a return, right, Hayden, and they say, okay, this person bought this, they don't like it, they're returning it to us. Do they have a process? Because they're so big, and they're so everywhere with the facilities and the logistics and the people. Like, do they get that returned item and then check it, say, okay, it actually hasn't been opened, it looks fine, or do they have to say, hey, this is a used item now, like we've got to wholesale it? Because that might be why they're doing it too, is like, hey, if the amount of returns they're getting, it's not like they're losing a lot of money because of returns, but they're losing a lot of money because now they got a returned item they can't sell anymore.
Exactly. I think that's another great point. And it looks like, just cherry picking from this article here from CNN Business, more often those return products can end up in a liquidation warehouse, which is what you and I have been highlighting, or even in landfills, which are a threat to the environment. So I'm sure there is some type of process, to your point, where they're evaluating, okay, this product has a certain criteria where you can determine, okay, it can be just returned completely and resold back to another customer for the same price. Or there's probably more times than not a situation where, hey, now that we've quote unquote sold this once, it's been returned, we do have to liquidate it, etc.
Sell it for discount.
Exactly.
Well, I just saw this too. This is really interesting. And this is probably like, this probably aren't perfect math, but it says for every 1 billion in sales, the average retailer incurs 165 million in merchandise returns, according to the National Retail Federation.
So that's roughly 17% then. Or I don't know if I'm looking at that correctly, but
customers sent back 17%.
Okay, yeah.
But that's nuts. That's a lot when you're talking millions and millions of dollars. So I think it'll shake out interesting. I'm just, maybe we'll have to do like a survey to see who thinks that's a good idea or not.
Yeah, and I think I sped too quickly through one of my other points here, and then we can wrap things up, which is tying back into these liquidation warehouses. But like any situation, just as we were describing with ChatGPT, you can look at the glass half full and see what good can come from these situations. From a lens that you and I operate on or think about, okay, Amazon, for example, and there's plenty of other big retailers out there as well, do have to liquidate these, returns. You can start buying those by the pallet and open up a business. I can't tell you how many new businesses I've seen open up where they're flipping and selling stuff for, $1, $2, but they're moving through that inventory. Like, it's an interesting business idea for
My
people.
in-laws just did this.
Yeah.
So they did it over Christmas. They bought a pallet, like a Amazon pallet, and they've doubled their money already.
Exactly. What a great side hustle. Or maybe it's their full-fledged business now. I mean,
but they just they did it because they're like, oh, like this will be fun. Like, this is a fun thing to do, make some extra money, and they've just like slowly, like, they don't, like, it was just something to do for fun. But I think like we were there for Easter, and they doubled their money already.
that's amazing.
And they still got stuff left on it.
What's the name of it if you want to give them a shout out?
Oh, they don't have like a business. They just
okay.
they're just
Are
selling
they
it.
selling it online?
Yeah, they just bought it.
No, I mean, that's a great side little hustle then. Because I know of people that have, they're
Businesses.
called like open box retailers, and you'll go into a physical storefront and
I think
see
that's
the
like
stuff.
digging for deals. I think.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch, and they keep popping up more and more of them. So again, we're giving people ideas for
Run
side
with 'em,
hustles.
baby.
Yeah,
Run with
take them. Just give us a little bit of a cutback.
Hey, we'll take a cool 5%. That's fine.
Well, Cole, I say we wrap things up here. This was awesome getting back in the studio. I know for those avid listeners, we have taken a little bit of a break, but we are back in action. We're excited for the future, as Cole has been highlighting. We do have some exciting guests coming on. Each episode, we're getting better, learning more. Cole, anything else you would like to share?
Just stay tuned. Thanks for supporting us, and more exciting conversations, and hopefully some great things to come.
Amen to that. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.